This is Love Child, previously legendary Lena Pearl, and before that, something that starts with a T. I can't remember. But for now, I'm Love Child. And this one's for you, Sergeant Williepete. This is a reaction to a video you recently made entitled Everyone Needs to Fix This. And now it was unclear what needed to be fixed and who everyone was because you were a little all over the place, but I'm going to focus on a theme that you have with the movie Sinners. Now, you do know you're criticizing a movie which is written in the style of Southern Gothic, which, according to the Encyclopedia Britannica, this is a style of writing practiced by many writers of the American South, often characterized by grotesque, the macabre, or fantastic. True to the genre, in the film there is decay and collapse. The tone is nihilistic as you watch the characters who are doomed from the start, and they are visited with a repressed and forgotten past that comes back and presents horror in the present, warping the future into a horrifying immortality. Now, the character Annie is able to foretell all of this, and her face glistens with courage, and she is strong and fierce. So I have to ask you, Sarge, what is wrong with a black woman looking like this? You see, this is who the wife of Smoke in the movie Sinners would look like. And I don't think this is pandering at all. This is a depiction of marriage in the Mississippi Delta during the Great Depression, one of the most brutal times in American history, when black people were barely out of shackles and well on their way to the era of Jim Crow. Now, as you should know, I'm from Mississippi. And I know that inside those sharecropper shacks, when the burning southern sun finally set, the struggle for survival was so intense, most men were unable to entertain the idea of a fantasy wife. The character of Annie would not be a compromise. She would have been ideal. She would have been the prize. During the 1930s, people did not necessarily marry for romantic purposes, but for economic and social ties. The best wife might not be the most beautiful. She would likely come from a good family with proper etiquette and ties to land and resources. She would be smart and industrious, healthy and obedient to the family because she had to fit in. She wouldn't be married to another man, however, talking about having sex with you on the train platform where anyone could hear her, like the character Mary. Again, we are talking about a time which was fraught both economically and politically, where men lost fortunes overnight and Wall Street crashed and workers were paid in script. In Chicago, where the twins made their way to after the war, unemployed men stood in lines outside soup kitchens, and people crowded slums and begged for food and built homes from crates and cardboard and scraps of metal. Yet, you say that a man in such conditions, who was desperate enough to steal from the Chicago Mafia, would have had the means to rise above his tenant farmer background and concern himself with anything other than the social placement and technical skill of the only partner who could help elevate his status and save him from starvation. We don't have information fully on the background that they came from in order to determine whether they were upper class or what. But I can tell you that here in Mississippi, a family's reputation is still extremely important. Now, I think that perhaps you should start reading some of these novels instead of relying so much on the film adaptations because you get so much wrong. Perhaps you could read The Sound and the Fury by William Faulkner in order, or some of his other works, in order to get a better understanding of the Southern Gothic, which also, some of those explore the fall of a once noble family. Or, for example, the works of Flannery O'Connor, in which beauty is only depicted in the most tragic sense. Or read A Streetcar Named Desire in order to see what becomes of love and beauty in the Southern Gothic tradition. Now, I bring up and mention this about beauty because when we are talking about literary realism, this is a genre of a literary genre that seeks to reproduce life as it really is. And if you want to be realistic, in the poverty and racism of the rural South, a man like Smoke would have had at least one other woman, as the most beautiful women were usually widowed or abandoned or left with few other options. So sometimes they were mistresses. And this would have been fairly out in the open and almost expected. Remember, slavery and its effects on the family still lingered, as I suspect they still do today. But as I said, the movie Sinners also has elements of realism, which for me has echoes of Bessie Smith and Ma Rainey. And just like in The Color Purple, which you don't seem to know very much about because you seem to be relying on the movie. The novel was written by Alice Walker. The movie, The Color Purple, that you criticize so much, was written by a white man and directed by a black man, Quincy Jones. The South you watch in Sinners is more real than you want it to be. You want to see polished hair and slim waists during a time when women married young and had lots of children, and they worked in the fields. You expect romance when men struggle to survive, and your wife's family might be the only ones to save you from a lynching. Regardless of what her dress size was, if her father worked for the white pastor or her uncle could get you work, just in case your juke joint were to close. See what I mean? Women in that era worked hard. And they might look like Annie or Bessie Smith or Ma Rainey. They might be plain, but they adorned themselves with feathers, pearls, or in the case of Ma Rainey, gold teeth. They could cook, and a lot of them could sing. This is American literature, which is among the best in the world because it is free. You can't untell a story. But then again, who are you to censor an author's words? Anything that can happen is a story worth telling. Just like a Bessie Smith or Ma Rainey song, the truth is right there, and you can't help but listen.